Assalamu alaikum, dear students. These days, as you know, we are, talking about paragraph writing. In our last, a couple of classes, we talked about different types of paragraphs. And there, we studied simple listing paragraphs, order of importance paragraph, time order paragraphs, spatial paragraphs. And then, we moved, into multi-paragraph compositions, and we talked about what actually multi-paragraph composition is, how it differs from a simple paragraph, and how four basic types of paragraphs are used in multi-paragraph composition, and how the skeleton or the structure of a simple paragraph is different from multi-paragraph, and where are the similarities we talked about. And if you remember, we talked about the characteristics of paragraphing also, that unity is there, and its coherence and development. These are three important features which writers have to keep in mind while going about producing paragraphs. Of course, today we'll continue with multi-paragraph composition, because two very important multi-paragraph compositions like contrastive composition and cause and effect compositions are left, and I'll discuss first these two. Then I'll give you one more important composition style, which is actually, generally we call it Greek presentation of information actually style. It has five components. We'll discuss one by one those components, and then we'll move towards our second important point in today's lecture. That will be how to analyze an essay question, or you can say the topic statement or the question statement of an essay, how to analyze it and how it guides us about the type of material or information needed. And then after this we'll move towards third and the last important part of our today's lecture, which will be high impact language. Now this high impact language, there we actually will be able successfully to review all that we have done so far towards paragraph writing. For example, we'll talk about once again word, we'll talk about grammar and structure, then we'll move into paragraphing, and lastly we'll talk about appearance. So this high impact language will give us once again an opportunity to review what we've done in our last classes. Let's now move towards our sixth type of paragraph as a whole, and second multi-paragraph type, which is contrastive argument. Now contrastive composition means that you compare, let's say, two things or more than two things. Okay, for example, you can compare two persons, you can compare two cities, for example, you can compare two historical, let's say, places. What actually you do in contrastive composition, of course, you start with the topic sentence. Here, when we say multi-paragraph composition, like if you compare paragraphs, topic, sentence, and multi-paragraph compositions, topic, sentence, of course, there will be a slight difference. Over there, this is of a sentence length, for example. But in multi-paragraph, the same topic sentence actually is given as a independent, separate, paragraph. So the first paragraph of this composition will be, of course, introductory paragraph, which is going to contain itself the topic sentence, and topic sentence, as you know, is the central idea or the theme, of your essay or your, composition. And after this, you'll move towards the body of multi-paragraph composition. Now, the body of multi-paragraph composition means if we are comparing, for example, two historical places, then the first place in the second paragraph, for example, and then the second place in the third paragraph. Now, when we say first historical place in the second paragraph, it means that again, its skeleton will be the same one. The first will be, if I'm, for example, comparing, let's say, the history of Lahore and the history of, let's say, Karachi, then the first sentence of Lahore, of course, is going to be the central idea again, or you can say the topic sentence. And then its sportive details, what different points I, want to talk about Lahore, for example. And then before I, switch over to my second, city or second, item of discussion, I would like to, wind my discussion up about Lahore in a concluding line. So this will be our second paragraph of contrasting. And then I'll move, of course, towards the second city, the history of Karachi, for example, when I talk about. Then, of course, the first line, of course, is the central idea, a topic sentence, then sportive details, and the last one will be concluding. After this whole discussion, we'll then move towards the closing paragraph, which again will be a concluding remarks, by the writer for his readers. So this is how, this contrastive argument, this multi-paragraph, composition, will be, built across whatever, the topic actually has been given. Before I move towards the last multi-paragraph composition, cause and effect, I would like to give you one example so that you could really see that how the structure of a multi-paragraph composition, especially this contrastive composition, is all about. Take a look. On your screen, there is one piece of composition, and it's titled as Two Big Cities. Now, you can see the first paragraph actually is, the introductory paragraph, which actually is the topic, sentence or a topic paragraph in which you actually set the whole scene, what you're going to do in the upcoming, lines. Then in the second paragraph, first city you'll talk about. In the next paragraph, second city. Of course, there are central ideas, there are sportive details, there are closing lines. The whole fashion, of course, will be repeated in the second paragraph and then closing. Let's go through it. The first paragraph, when I revisited Southern California after about 40 years, I found that many changes had taken place. The biggest change was in the landscape. The change that I noticed second was in the space of life. Now, in this composition, what writer is going to do, he's of course going to talk about the changes, which has, taken place, changes which have taken place. And he mentioned two changes, number one, he talked about landscape, and second, he talked about, space of life. Now, these two changes, he would be discussing in two, different paragraphs. And the cities which he's going to talk about, he has already given you about. Let's go ahead with the first paragraph, which is actually the body of this, multi-paragraph composition. It goes this way. 40 years ago, the land around Los Angeles was mostly farms and open spaces. This is what? This is the topic sentence of, this very paragraph. And after this very paragraph, there'll be what? The sportive details towards what actually is the topic sentence. Like, it took only a few minutes to drive out of the city and feel one was in the country. On returning to the city 40 years later, I was immediately struck by the amount of building that had taken place. Former farmland was now residential communities. Barren canyons were filled with schools, shops, and houses. Near desert areas were filled with large industrial parks. This was the most dramatic change I noticed. Now, writer, before, switching over to the next paragraph, he, likes concluding it in one line, that this was the most dramatic change I noticed. And now, if we move towards the second paragraph, I mean to say the second paragraph of the body of this, composition, you would see the second biggest change seemed to be in the space of life. Now, this is the topic sentence. And then, of course, he will be discussing the, the body, or you can say the sportive details, about the same, topic line. How it goes. When I first went to Los Angeles, it seemed a relaxed and easygoing community where, time was less important than comfort. On the other hand, today's Los Angeles is as active and exciting as any city in the country. Indeed, it seems as hectic as any other city. Now, again, the conclusion of the second paragraph is there. So this is how, we move about the quality of, this multi-paragraph composition is that, you have main topics and then minor topics, and the fashion, the skeleton which we've already discussed of paragraphs, like you start from the central idea, which is of course the topic line, then argumentation, then closing, and the first sentence of course is indented. The same is repeated actually in every paragraph. That's the beauty of it. Now, things which are like don'ts, the don't of long, this composition will be that don't take it this way, that once topic sentence mentioned in the first paragraph, there is no need to talk any about the subtopics of your composition. That would be actually a blunder if you do it. Every paragraph has to have the same 4 features, which we've actually decided upon. The first feature, don't forget that, topic sentence. Every paragraph, doesn't matter that, you have given topic sentence in the first paragraph. It doesn't matter. Every paragraph has its own skeleton. That has to be like, followed strictly, rigidly, like anything. Every paragraph, central idea, supportive detail, closing, first sentence indented. Doesn't matter, like, it's a longer, composition, or it's just one paragraph size composition. Doesn't matter. Fashion has to be repeated, from top to the bottom of this, this multi-paragraph compositions. Let's now move towards our last multi-paragraph composition, which is actually cause and effect. Now, when I say cause and effect, these are, of course, 2 points. One is the cause and second is effect. For example, your topic is, let's say, brain drain. You want to talk about. Now, brain drain, its cause, its effect. Now, in one paragraph, 1, 2, 3, 10, 20, doesn't matter how many causes you want to talk about, they're all going to stay in one paragraph. And one paragraph will be what? Effects of the brain drain, all right? These will be the 2 paragraphs which we're going to call actually the body of your paragraphs. Above this will be one paragraph which we're going to talk about the topic paragraph or the topic sentence, or a paragraph containing central idea or the theme of your composition. And under these 2, there'll be one last paragraph which is going to be what? Of course, the concluding paragraph, in which, information going to flow out either from the first paragraph, which is your central idea, or can flow out from the body of the paragraph. The cause and effects, could be facts and figures, could be, summarized actually in, few lines. So this is how, this essay will be, constructed. Cause and effect. Doesn't matter if the topic is, let's say, overpopulation, for example. So what's the cause of overpopulation? What are the effects of overpopulation? Again, the same way, in one paragraph, cause, in second paragraph, effects. Downstairs will be, the concluding paragraph. Upstairs, of course, will be the opening paragraph containing central, idea. This is how cause and effect compositions are constructed. Please do not forget, I'm stressing it upon again and again, rather I'm overstating it, and I mean that every paragraph has to have its own central idea and its own concluding idea. Otherwise, we would say that there is some sort of like, kind of vague feeling, in you that you are, breaking your composition up into smaller groups, not paragraphs. So we would call actually groups of sentences, not paragraphs. When we say paragraphs, it means, every paragraph has to have its own opening line, closing line, inside whatever matter you want to give. Please follow this as a ritual. Without this, you are going to, of course, I would say, confuse your readers actually, that why, he, broke this piece of composition into 2 paragraphs without concluding. So you are going to leave your readers actually in confusion if you do not follow the paragraph building criteria for each and every unit inside the longer, compositions. A few examples I would like to show you what are cause and effect compositions, and then of course we'll move towards our second point of today's lecture, how to analyze, an essay topic. Let's take a few, examples of cause and effect composition. Now, you can take a look on your screen. Topic is choosing my career. Now, you can see 1, 2, 3, and 4 paragraphs. 4 paragraphs means one is opening, last one is what you call concluding paragraph. Inside 2 paragraphs, one is cause and second is effect. So this is how this, composition is constructed. You can see the first paragraph. My decision to become a nurse was based on several well thought out reasons. This is what? This is the topic sentence. And some of my reasons had to do with personal goals. Other reasons had to do with my view of society and where I want to fit into society. Now, this is how the opening is there. And now we're going to jump into what? The second paragraph, which is going to be the cause, for example. During my last year in high school, I had several long conversations with my parents about what to do after I graduated. Through these talks, I was able to clarify my career goals. I wanted a job with good pay and good status. These were not my only goals. I also wanted a job that would help people in a practical way, a job that could make people's lives better. Now, these, what she's actually talking about, or he's talking about, all the causes, which led him or her, to some direction or to some career. Now, take a look at the third paragraph. Taking these reasons into consideration, I was able to narrow down my choice to 2 jobs. The first was teaching. I have always liked children, and I like teaching people to do things. A teacher also makes decent living and gets a fair amount of respect if he or she does her job well. I would also be able to help people as a teacher. The second choice was nursing. Nursing met all my criteria for a job. In addition, it is a job I could continue to do periodically or part-time if I decided to have children. Finally, I decided on nursing as a career since it offered me a good paying, respected position with a lot of flexibility. So did you see? We talked about, choosing my career. In the opening paragraph, we just set the scene. In the second paragraph, we talked about different reasons, actually, different causes, actually, involved, of course, in this decision-making thing. The third paragraph, then the short listing towards this decision-making, and then why one, side was taken up and other side was, given up. Why nursing profession was chosen, that was actually the effect. And then different, argumentation which was needed, to further, clarify the situation. And then in the last paragraph, the writer actually did what? Concluded. And how the conclusion is, I am now in my last year of nursing school, and I am looking forward to starting my professional life. I feel certain I made the right choice. So this is how essay has been concluded. These are cause and effect compositions. Let's move towards... And let me tell you one thing. This is what actually 7 types of paragraph and, multi-paragraph compositions are. Now, I'm going to give you 1 plus. For your information, for your interest, and maybe you would, like that. That's actually Greek, style of presentation. Presentation of what? Presentation of, facts and figures. Presentation of, the information actually which you, want to share with your readers. This style is highly persuasive one. How writers go about this, like in cause and effect, we cause 1 paragraph, effect 2nd paragraph. In multi-paragraph composition, if I want to talk about my 2 friends, for example, so in 1 paragraph, my 1 friend, in 2nd paragraph, 2nd friend. What happens in Greek presentation actually? Of course, there will be an introductory paragraph. Now, the difference in multi-paragraph this Greek presentation is that here we do not disclose. Please, I need your attention that in Greek presentation, there is a slight difference. We have seen in all types of paragraphs, whether they are, 1 paragraph or multi-paragraph, we've seen that first sentence or first paragraph is always the central idea, the theme, the topic sentence. But in Greek presentation, first paragraph is not the central idea, is not the theme, is not the topic sentence. This is just what? This is just, you can say, a few sentences which could set not a very narrow topic sentence or central idea means, very narrowed down, line, which, sets up your thesis. Whereas here in Greek, we do talk about the scene, but it's a very broad, very global, scene. We just write a few sentences just to keep ourselves, relevant to. And in second paragraph, that's called narration. Narration means, we, in this paragraph, share some personal experience or some sort of facts and figures or some, stories or some even, doesn't matter, depends upon the type of composition, you are about, jokes even. No, these are such narrations actually, which are so tightly written, and they are extremely relevant towards what actually you want to talk about, that readers, without being informed, automatically, after reading the first global starting, and then that story or that narration part, automatically understand, okay, what now this writer is going to talk about in the next coming paragraphs. This is a very persuasive style actually. Very much, what we call that? We very, very slowly, we grab readers' attention actually, and then, we persuade him towards what actually we talk about. If we compare Greek presentation with any paragraph writing style, the difference is, in ordinary paragraphing style, what happens that after reading the very first sentence, readers understand, okay, what he will be talking about in the upcoming paragraphs. But in Greek presentation, in the first paragraph, readers do not have any idea actually. Yeah, they can have a very broad idea, a global idea. In the second paragraph, again, their writer actually is sharing with them sort of story, joke, could be, facts and figures, just to grab their attention. But still in here, they do not find that very line which could very categorically mention that, this is what actually I want to talk about. No. Then comes the third, which is what? Disclosure. In here, actually, we disclose what we want to talk about. With an assumption that reaching this point, all my readers, now they, will have understood, or will have guessed actually about what I will be talking about in the upcoming paragraphs. And then comes, of course, the same way, argumentation. In the fourth paragraph now, which is a real bulky paragraph, there you talk actually about all different arguments, which you want to talk about. And this is, you can say, the actual part of this, composition. Bigger in size, of course. In practical sense, this is the actual body of your, this composition. And then comes, we do not then after this body, we do not jump to conclusion actually. Rather, we give one more paragraph, which we call as, generally we call it, antithesis, but here I would like to call it contrast. Contrast means, showing your readers other side of the coin also. Now, what I have talked about, that a very, very broad, very, very global, generalized opening, and then jumping on to narration. Narration means actually telling such an experience, which is reader's experience also. Telling such a story which could really, bind them, which could really grab their attention, which could really, win readers' focus. And then you jump to disclosure. Disclosure is the third point where you actually tell what I want to talk. So it means topic sentence you reveal in the third paragraph. And then comes the body of your paragraph, which is the actual, of course, part of your composition. And then, no conclusion, but contrast. Contrast means sharing the other side of the coin, sharing another perception about the situation, and after this, you close the concluding remark. And interesting thing, in ordinary paragraphing, in ordinary compositions, our conclusion is what? We say it should flow out from, if you remember, I repeatedly said the same thing, Your conclusion should flow out either from the topic sentence or from the body of your paragraph. But in Greek presentation style, conclusions, they do not summarize. When I said they do not summarize, it means their approach is not backward actually. See, when we summarize things, what happens actually? We start recounting things which we had been actually talking about. You go back. When I say, let me summarize, it means I'll be counting again those points which I have actually discussed with you. But in Greek presentation, our approach is, forward, not backward. We do not talk about, what I have said, in the previous paragraphs or lines, but actually we talk about what now are, what's the use actually of the whole information which I've discussed with you, how to implement this actually, this information which I discussed with you in, practical arena. So this is how this Greek presentation style, is, different from the ordinary, paragraphing style. Now, let's move towards our second important part of today's lecture, which is how to analyze our essay questions, or you can say how to analyze, the problem statements in an essay. An essay topic, can give you three very important points, which we, of course, can learn about by analyzing. Like, first important thing, an essay topic tells you the strategy, actually. For example, strategy here means when I say, let's say, if I assign you some task to do, and I say discuss, or if I say compare, or if I say contrast, or if I say, critique, for example. So these all, words which I just talked about set up the strategy, for that essay. And second is the content of your essay. Now, content of essay means when I said discuss A and B, for example, now discuss is the strategy, A and B is the content, of your essay. And then comes the prompts. Prompts are what? Prompts are the number of points or the number of aspects, this essay asks you, or this composition asks you to discuss. Let's take a look and practically let's, analyze essay topics and then see, like, how an essay topic, construct, for us, paths actually to move on and, go about, writing. Let's take a look. On your screen, there is one topic, analyze Jesus' Sermon on the Mountain. Now, this topic, analyze Jesus' Sermon on the Mountain, and I gave you 3 points. Number one, I said an essay topic gives you or guides you about the strategy. Number two, I said the whole content, and then the prompts. Now, in this topic, analyze Jesus' Sermon on the Mountain, analyze word is the strategy for this essay. And Jesus' Sermon on the Mount is called the content. Now, inside the content, we have prompts. Now, there's a content line. There are prompts are Jesus' Sermon on the Mount. Look, Jesus probably, gave many, sermons, for example. So which sermon actually we are talking about? This is actually the prompt factor. Which sermon we are talking about? We are talking about the sermon, the one which is the Sermon on the Mountain, for example. So this is how a topic, 3 things. Don't forget that strategy. Strategy is what you're going to do about. Are you going to discuss it? Are you going to define it? Are you going to compare it? Or you're going to write a critique on it? Or you want to illustrate, for example. So all the, of course, I'll discuss with you and the meanings and the, definitions also. Second part is called the content. Inside the content, you have prompts. Prompts are what? Aspects to discuss in your essay. One more example. Describe the major effects of reconstruction. Now, in this topic, describe the major effects of reconstruction. The word describe is strategy. The major effects of reconstruction is the content line. Now, inside the content, you'll have prompts. Number 1, major. Number 2, effects. Number 3, reconstruction. Now, effects, there may be many effects, for example, primary effects of primary nature, secondary nature, tertiary nature. We are only concerned with primary nature, which are, of course, major effects. Effects of what? Only of reconstruction. So we are going to discuss three things, actually, in this composition or in this essay, that different effects, of course, we'll say, like, there are different effects, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, but I'll only focus on A, B, and C, which are, major effects. Effects of what? Then reconstruction. Reconstruction actually is the context which this essay has, set up for us. One more example for you. Compare the end of history with the clash of civilization. Now, strategy is compare. What to compare? Now, the content line are the end of history with the clash of civilization. Now, in this content line, there are two prompts. Number one, end of history, and number two, clash of civilization. This is how essay, topics are analyzed. This is also called, in some books you can see that prompts or content part of this essay topic is also called as, terms of question. Find out the terms of question. The terms of question is the same thing. Decide about the strategy. Decide about the content. Inside the content, see what are different prompts which you're going to discuss. So this is how, essay will be, written. If the same topic, if I discuss with you the effects of media on society, discuss, let's say, the effects of media on society. Discuss is going to be your strategy. When I say discuss, it means don't define it, don't compare it, don't illustrate it, only, discuss it. Don't describe it, don't narrate it, only what? Discuss it. This is the strategy, actually. And then comes the content line. Effects of media on society. Inside the content line, what are the prompts? Discuss effects. Effect is one prompt. Media is the second prompt. Third prompt is society. Now, these are three aspects which you're going to talk about. You are not just going to talk about what are the effects of media. No. Effects of media on society. And here, society, not just one particular society. We are like talking about, let's say a global society, for example. This is what actually the analysis of, essay questions is, all about. Before I move any further, I would like to discuss with you what are different strategies, which we can, talk all about in our essays. As I mentioned with you, discuss is one, describe is one. I have prepared a long list for you of different, strategies. Let's try to understand the meanings, their definitions, what actually we mean by describe, what actually we mean by, compare, what we mean by, illustrate. Like the first one, analyze. When we say analyze, it means break the subject down into parts and explain the various parts. Analyzing means break into smaller parts and then explain those smaller, parts. This is what we call as analysis. Compare means what? Show how two things are similar as well as different. Include details or examples. When we compare things, the similarities and their differences, we discuss. Contrast. The third strategy is contrast. Contrast means show how two things are different. Include details or examples. Just like, in comparison. Then comes, critique. Critique means, point out both the good and bad points of something. Here, when you are like, writing a critique, for example, simply you will be talking about the good side and the bad side. That's it. And it has to be highly objective, of course, not subjective. If it's subjective, then the word good and the word bad, of course, will be like, full of perceptions. So very globally, like, you'll be comparing the good side and the bad side without giving your own personalized opinion about it. Then comes define. What is define? Define means give an accurate meaning of a term with enough detail to show that they really understand it. So in defining means accurate meaning of a term. Like I used with you the word end of history, for example. If I ask you define end of history, so here you will not discuss the application of end of history, on the world politics, for example. No, you will only talk about what end of history, what are the meanings of end of history and what actually, it is all about. if I say clash of civilization, for example, I am not asking you that write about whether, it is happening these days or not. I mean, the international politics, is all about clash of civilizations or not. Rather, I have talked with you about that define what actually clash of civilization is, so that the meanings may be clear. Let's see some more strategies. When we say describe, it means write about the subject so the reader can easily visualize it. You describe in such a way that reader could easily visualize. There are writers who paint the picture. There are speakers who paint the picture. When they write, they speak, they take you to that place. I mean, words are of writers and experience are of course, yours. You feel as if you are, watching it with your own eyes. So this is actually the quality of description is. Next comes what? Diagram. When I say diagram it, it means make a drawing of something and label its parts. Discuss. Discuss means give a complete and detailed answer, including important characteristics and main points. Then comes enumerate. Enumerate means write in list or outline form. Just list out points. Prepare an outline, prepare a list, okay? And giving points one by one. If you remember, simple listing paragraphs actually are all about this enumeration. Next comes evaluate. Give your opinion of the value of the subject. Discuss its good and bad points, strengths and weaknesses. This is what evaluation is. Going, further, we have explain. Explain mean give the meaning of something, give facts and details that make the idea easy to understand. Illustrate. Make the point or idea clearly by giving examples. Illustration means, when you argumentation and you explain your argumentation, with the help of some examples, some personal experiences. Even you can use analogies also to make your point clear. Next comes interpret. Tell about the importance of the subject. Explain the results of the effects of something. Then comes justify. What is justify? It means give good reasons that support a decision, action, or event. Justification. And the last one, outline. Make an organized listing of the important point of a subject. So this is how, some of the strategies, I have discussed with you. And these strategies actually demand a very different approach towards the information, which you share with your readers. To sum up this all, 3 important strategies. Number 1, inform, examine, and analyze. Just to explain you actually that how these strategies, create a very different look and taste of the composition, which you construct. When we talk about inform, I mean information only, okay? It means, composition based on information. It means that you are only going to fulfill WHQs. If you have answered WHQs, it will be all right. Comes examine, for example. Now, in examination means that all different pieces of information, for example, W are like, 5, who, what, when, where, why, and then 1 is how. All these, answers, you examine, you compare, and you contrast with each other. Let's say there were different sources of information. There was some interview, some survey, and, observation, your own observation. Now, information gotten out from these 3 different, sources. In examination, actually, what you do, you compare and contrast the bits and pieces of, this information, and then, of course, you conclude things. Analysis or analyze. In analyze, what we do actually, based on our examinations, we try to forecast, predict, talk about the resultants, for example. So this is how strategies affect your writing and the type of information you pick and choose for your composition. I hope you understand different paragraph types, multi-paragraph composition, and then how to analyze, essay topics. What are inside an essay, topic? For example, strategy is the content, is the inside the content, you have prompts, which are different aspects actually you're going to discuss in your composition. And then I discussed with you different types of, strategies which you can, come across, in your writing this game. Now let's move towards what is high impact language. When we say high impact language, and I mentioned it before also, that high impact language will give you once again an opportunity to review what you've actually studied. High impact language is the name of three things: high impact word, high impact sentence, and high impact appearance. We have talked enough about words, for example, when we were talking about word choices, and then in style also, what type of words, are, proper words, and which words to be, avoided. And here, what I actually mean by high impact word. High impact word is the name of two things. Number one, if you remember, when we talked about qualities of good writing, over there I said short and familiar, words are better choices for the writers. I mean, to make the, messages go to the, readers. So what are short and simple? We call them, Anglo-Saxon language. I mean, Anglo-Saxon language, you can compare it with, Latinate language, actually. Anglo-Saxon, language of English, actually, this is more familiar, actually. It's, of course, simple as well. Simple to understand as compared with the Latinate language, which are, words of bigger size, lots of, syllables inside, and difficult to understand. This will be the first principle. Use Anglo-Saxon language. To give you an example of Anglo-Saxon language, let's say on your screen you can take a look. Pursuant is one word, and its Anglo-Saxon translation is after. Ascertain is one word, and its easy translation in Anglo-Saxon will be find out. Now just imagine, ascertain and find out. The third one is objective, and its Anglo-Saxon translation is goal, and then advice. Anglo-Saxon is, tell. So, Latinate words, when you are to choose between two words, just ask yourself that, is it Anglo-Saxon? I mean, is it short and familiar? If answer is yes, choose that. If it's not, chances are that there will be Latinate language, Latinate word. Only educated, readers, of course, can understand. A common reader, of course, will find it difficult to understand. The second now point in high impact word is avoid wordiness. I mean, of course, you have already studied about, what wordiness is. So when we say impact word, we mean by two things. Number one, short and familiar words. Number two, no wordiness. Wordiness means, of course, use one word substitution. Don't use, words which are in split form. To give you an example, like along the lines can be translated into according to. At this time is a wordy expression, and it's, one word substitution is, now. So this is all about high impact words. Use short and familiar words. Number two, no wordiness. Let's now move towards what are high impact sentences. Look, you have studied, that there are three types of sentences: simple, compound, and then complex, and then, compound complex. So in a way, there are four: simple, and then compound, and then complex, and then, compound complex multiple. Now, when we say high impact sentence, what actually it means? Simple sentence has the highest impact. When you use simple sentences, it has got the highest impact. Okay? So use simple sentences for maximum impact in your writing. When we say impact, what does it mean? It actually means that the successful messaging, readability, listenability. Your written message will be, of course, the one which will be, of course, understood. When we say high impact, you will be able, to make your message successful. Successfully, of course, it will move across your readers and they'll understand. This is actually, we call it high impact. Now, compound sentences. If you want to lower impact in your writing, for example, so you can use compound sentences. And when to use complex sentence? Complex sentence means you use it for two reasons. Complex sentence, high impact plus variety. Now, what we actually understand from high impact sentences? We understand from high impact sentences, three things. Simple sentence, use simple sentence for maximum impact. Use complex sentence for maximum impact and variety. And number three, use compound sentence if you want to lower impact in your writing. This is all about. If you take a look on your screen, I ran the meeting is a simple sentence. And second is, I ran the meeting and I wrote the minutes. The third sentence is, after I read the contract, I sent it to headquarters. First sentence is simple, highest impact. Second sentence is compound, lower impact. Third sentence is a complex, high impact and variety. Now, just see, it's not an easy game actually. It's quite difficult in a way. Look, practically speaking, when you count your sentences, let's say there are 10 sentences, you are in your one paragraph. Let's say, if I ask you count now your sentences, simple sentence, of course you will count as 1. Complex sentence also you're going to count as 1. And compound sentence, of course, you will be counting as 2. Why? Because there are 2 independent clauses. When I say, now, what is high impact language? High impact language is the one, a paragraph in which simple plus complex sentences are more in number. Please keep in mind, what I'm trying to say is, high impact paragraph or high impact language is the one in which simple and complex sentences are more in number, and compound sentences are less in number. Out of 10 sentences, if there are, let's say, 4 compound sentences, and as I told you, one compound sentence is equal to 2 sentences. It means, 4 compound sentences actually mean 10 compound sentences. So make sure to have large number of simple and compound to increase impact in your writing. Second point of high impact sentences, put subject first. I mean, every sentence, should have its subject first, and then verb second, and then object, third. If you see the first sentence, assistance in designing a system tailored to a customer's needs provides. Now, in this sentence, there is no subject. When there is no subject, reader, of course, will be confused. So what actually we did in the second sentence, we entered, the subject. And that is, the attached checklist provides assistance in designing a system tailored to a customer's needs. Now, subject is very important for the correct meanings. And the third principle of high impact sentences, use active voice. Of course, now you know through, grammatical and affective sentences that passive sentence does what? It hides the true subject. In active and passive, in active, we call active sentence the one in which subject is active. We call passive is the one in which action, not actor, action becomes, of more importance, and object of active sentence becomes actually, the subject of passive sentence. So, always use active sentences. In active sentence, of course, focus will be on the actor, not on action or, the verb completing elements. This is what we say high impact sentence. So far, I discussed with you that high impact language means 3 things: high impact word, high impact sentence. High impact word means short and familiar and no wordiness. High impact sentence means simple plus complex sentences. If you use these more in your writing, your language will be highly, I would say, high impact. If there are compound sentences more, your language will have low impact. Now, use active sentences and make sure if you're using active sentences, your subject is very much present in your sentence. Now, let's come down to high impact appearance. High impact appearance is the name of, 4 things. Let's take a look. First, paragraph size. Number 2, multiple ideas. Number 3, white spaces. And the last one is headings. Now, paragraph size. A good paragraph for high impact language is the one which has 3 to 4 sentences, not more than that. A good paragraph, like if you remember, we talked about the length of a sentence also, and if you remember, I told you that a good sentence is the one, you know, which on average has 17 to 20, let's say, words. Exactly the same way, a good paragraph is the one which has 3 to 4 sentences. So sentence paragraph length is very important. Number 2, multiple ideas. When we were talking about different types of simple paragraphs, and there I told you that a paragraph has unity in it. Now, unity means whatever is your central idea, sportive details flow out from the central idea, and conclusion also flows out from either the central idea or the sportive details. There has to be, your paragraph has to be highly unified. One single subject to be discussed in paragraph. Now, point is, if there are some multiple ideas in your paragraph, what to do? Should we break our paragraph into 2? I would say the better option is itemize those multiple ideas. Itemizing multiple ideas means that when you do not break your sentence this way, that having in second paragraph another central idea and conclusion, rather multiple ideas, itemizing multiple ideas means that in the same paragraph you use some bullets, for example 1, 2 or 3 or A, B or C. This is called itemizing your multiple ideas. If you come back on to the screen, you can take a look that in this paragraph what we did actually, first we checked the paragraph size, then we introduced multiple ideas like 1 and 2, we itemized them. And third point is white spaces. Have lots of white spaces in your writing. And the last one is, if you can use headlines, that would be wonderful, because headlines create pictures in reader's mind. This is what actually is called high impact language. So my dear students, today we talked about 3 things: multi-paragraph composition, and then we talked about how to analyze an essay topic. There we discussed 3 things. Number 1, strategy. Number 2, content. And inside the content, different prompts, which are aspects of your writing. And then number 3, we talked about high impact language. In high impact language, we discussed 3 things. That high impact language is the name of 3 things: high impact word, high impact sentence, and high impact appearance. I hope you understood what we actually mean by high impact language. And with this, thank you very much, and hope to see you next time with a new topic. Take care of yourself. Bye-bye.